Um, I got in a email debate with the quantum field theorist Viktor T. Toth, who has a PhD, and he replies to physics questions on the Quora website. And he promotes quantum field theory. And I asked him why he says virtual particles aren't physically existing when there's two experiments that demonstrate virtual photons being turned into real photons. And his response is that this is just observer relative based on the theory of relativity. And so each observer is observing a different space-time rest frame. And I said, well, can you respond to the specific experiment that I sent him, the SQUID mirror experiment, where they vibrate a magnetic field, the superconducting quantum interference device, at, I think it's 5% of the speed of light. And then this creates photons from the virtual photons. And he insisted that virtual photons are never created, or real photons are never created from virtual photons. And I also mentioned the second experiment of Sir John Pendry's Archimedes spiral of light that uses negative frequency to create virtual photon or real photons in violation of the conservation of energy. And so then Viktor Toth referred to Richard Feynman, stating that the Feynman diagrams clearly explain that the virtual particles are never observed. And just as Hawking radiation is never observed, and the Unruh effect, he said. And so then I said, well, if that's true, why does Professor Basil J. Hiley say that the Feynman diagrams are wrong, that renormalization is wrong, and there's an extra squiggle to the Feynman diagrams. And this extra squiggle is the vacuum, the another layer as a extra quality of energy that's non-commutative. And I also, I said you're pointing to all these textbooks on quantum field theory, because he literally listed several textbook authors. He said they're on my desk. And I said, but Professor John Pendry says that none of those textbooks actually discuss Bell's inequality that violates relativity as non-locality. And so then he mentioned another quantum field theory textbook. And he said, well, this gives a more modern treatment and it does discuss non-locality. And Professor John Pendry had challenged us to try to find Bell's inequality discussed in terms of relativity. And he says it's just not discussed. So I found the textbook in PDF searchable format, and I searched Bell's. There was nothing about Bell's inequality at all in the book. So when I sent these replies back to Viktor Toth about Basil J. Hiley critiquing Richard Feynman and about his textbook not discussing Bell's inequality, and I got no response. So he sent me 3 replies. So then I was a little peeved. He just stopped replying. So then I contacted Sir John Pendry, and I said, I'm having this discussion with Viktor T. Toth, and he claims that virtual particles can never be created, or that photons can never be created from virtual photons. And I said, what about the Archimedes spiral of light experiment that you do? And what about the SQUID mirror experiment? And he said, well, I don't know how you're defining a virtual particle, but there's this phenomenon if you consider an electron moving in a vacuum surrounded by virtual photons, then you can send that electron through a grating that will strip the virtual photons and create real photons. And he said it's called the Smith-Purcell Effect. And he said, you can just Google it. And instead of Googling it, I stuck it into YouTube, the Smith-Purcell Effect. And sure enough, there were 2 videos, and they were both lab experiment presentations by 2 different scientists. And so this, Sir John Pendry. It's the first time I've ever received an email from somebody who is knighted. So it's pretty cool. And so I sent that on to Viktor T. Toth, and we'll see if he replies. But I just find it annoying that you have both Viktor T. Toth and Matt Dowd of PBS Spacetime claiming that virtual particles don't exist, that they can't be turned into real photons. Because I know this is what happens during meditation. And as far as the relativistic observer relative frame, space-time frame, the problem is you have the SQUID mirror experiment has been corroborated and replicated in other laboratories. One of the scientists he's on YouTube talking about it, and he is also on the Nobel Prize for Physics committee. So, he knows what he's talking about. And the viewpoint of non-commutativity is that there is no relativistic rest frame that because of the uncertainty principle, you can't replicate or repeat something at the scale of a particle, because every time you measure it, it's going to be non-commutative, so that the change in the measurement versus the momentum inherently will change the value. But so this means that any observation inherently can never be repeated. And you can set up a experimental condition where you're using an entangled particle. And this is what the weak measurement is. And then you measure just one aspect of the position, and then you can measure the momentum, but you do it from the future without disturbing the entangled position. And by doing that weak measurement, then you're able to corroborate the non-local field, as it were, like the ether that's guiding the particle from the future. And because it's non-commutative, you don't have to use probability. It's just a constructive and destructive interference wave of the future and the past overlapping. So then I emailed Professor Robert Flack about the argon weak measurement experiments. And they did the initial experiment. But that was like 2 years ago. And so they said they're going to do a future experiment as a weak measurement experiment and testing the non-commutativity of the mass of the particle, the rest mass, versus just a photon that doesn't have any rest mass. And so we'll see if Robert Flack responds or not. But the weak measurement experiments with the photon state explicitly that this is a repulsive gravity. It's an anti-gravity. It's the negaparticle, the negative mass from the future. And so I asked Robert Flack if this could be used as some kind of anti-gravity. And I mean, I know from the meditation training that this is true. This is what causes levitation. And they're stating explicitly in the latest Yakir Aronov research group paper on the weak measurement of the negaparticle, that it is a repulsive gravity. So that's experimental corroboration of anti-gravity existing. And then, since it's it's from this virtual level of reality, then it can also be absorbed and then stored up through meditation, because you're not relying on a visual observation. You're relying on a superluminal acoustic logical inference. And so I appreciate the response from Sir John Pendry of the Smith-Purcell Effect, proving that the virtual photons can be stripped off the electrons and turned into real photons. Thank you very much.